We've also got a question and answer session. So the opportunity for you to pose any questions that you've got about the refurbishment process to me. So I think we're pretty much done with everybody coming in. I know there's going to be some late starters, but I'm going to put that to one side right now and just start the session. Oh, no, we've got another one coming in now. So they keep coming in thick and fast, which is great. And again, thank you so much for spending the time on a Tuesday evening. As I say, I really hope this gives you what you need, because refurbishments are something that scare a lot of people in property. The conversations that I have on a daily basis, and I have had for many, many years with people, are reflective of the thoughts that I had when I first started. When I first started out in property, I was pretty scared of what happened, because I was working for an estate agent in West London in my early teens, my early 20s rather, my early teens, my early 20s. I was working for an estate agent in London, and I was selling properties to developers, and I was selling properties for developers. And I was looking at kind of the rundown properties they were buying from us, and then they were turning these ugly ducklings into beautiful swans, and just seeing what actually appertained afterwards. And I didn't really get involved in the middle process. So I was in the same position that everybody else is, a little bit daunted, a little bit anxious about refurbishments. But if we break it down really, really simply and really, really easily, refurbishments are pretty much straightforward. There's nothing to worry about with refurbishments. Now, there's many different refurbishments that we can do in property, ranging from the small to the medium to the large to the humongous. For the sake of ease and for the sake of what most of you on this webinar will be doing today, I'm just going to talk about the basic and the straightforward refurbishments, the kind of refurbishments that most of us will be doing on our property journey. Now, this is my proven refurbishment blueprint for 2 3-bedroomed terraced or semi-detached houses in South Wales. So what we're looking at is we're looking at that particular price point. We're looking at a price point, a sale price point, let's just say, a gross development value, an end value, whatever you want to call it, of anything from 150 to 250,000 pounds. Obviously, the process is different. It's not massively different, but we do things differently if we are looking at higher price point properties. If we're looking at different styles of properties, it will be different for us. So first of all, I'm going to talk about my proven refurbishment blueprint. I'm also going to talk about managing contractors and tradespeople, and I'm going to talk about assessing your refurbishment for your project property. So without further ado, I'd just like to introduce myself and just tell you a bit more about me and why I'm here and why I'm presenting this webinar for you. Well, like I said, I've been in property for 25 years plus. It's longer than that. My father's a chartered surveyor, had estate agencies, commercial estate agencies in the 1980s. I was brought up by my dad, so I kind of was always involved in property since birth, basically. After leaving school, I had a few jobs. I didn't want to get involved in property. I wanted to run as far away from it as I possibly could at that point in time, because I was 16, 17 years old. I knew everything about anything, as all teenagers of that age do, and I wanted to mark my own way in this world. And it was only until I was in my early 20s that I really thought hard about property and everything I'd seen before, and my experience of doing these jobs that seemed amazing on the surface of it, that weren't that great in practice, that I actually wanted to get back into property. So I went down to London. I trained as an estate agent, and I really enjoyed my time. I spent several years in West London, covering Ealing, Acton, Chiswick areas of West London, selling properties, and I absolutely loved it. I then came back to Wales because Newport is my home. Newport, I know a lot of people slate it, and I have the right to slate it myself because I'm a Newport boy. But I absolutely love South Wales. And it just so happens that South Wales is, as recognised by the statisticians and all the media coverage, as a real hotspot for investment in the UK. And since being back, I've worked in property finance. I've got a good grounding in that. I've worked in auctions. I've worked in estate agency. I've run my own investment consultancy that I still have today. And that mainly features around finding property in primarily the Southeast Wales region for investors from outside the region. So we've been doing that for a long, long time now. There's plenty of what we call property sources out there that sprung into the market very recently, but we've been doing this for a long, long time. And it's worked out really, really well for us. And some 7, 8 years ago, I started teaching people the rudiments of property investment and development. That developed into a mentorship program, and I've mentored over 50 people into successful property businesses since then. And that is my real passion, is helping people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds. It doesn't matter. People who have got the drive, the desire, and the tenacity to succeed in property. I've worked with them, and my enjoyment, my satisfaction comes from watching them flourish, watching their businesses evolve and fly. That is my real passion. I'm still in touch with mentees from several years ago. I mean, I was out last week with a mentee. He came on board 2 years ago, and he's now on project number 5. He runs a kebab house. He had no experience in property before, but he came on the program with me, and he's building a portfolio for the future. I mean, he has a fantastic, successful business, but he doesn't want to do it forever because the hours and the work is very hard and very long. So he's well on his way now to creating the perfect future for himself. I've appraised, I've refurbished myself hundreds of properties, and I've made literally millions of pounds for investors and mentees in the process, which has been a fantastic way of life for me and a great lifestyle for me too. So refurbishment can be hard if you try to do everything yourself. You don't stay on top of time, resources, and money. You hire the wrong people. You spend too much money on materials. You spend too much money on labor, and you overlook the important aspects. So many people with refurbishments, they don't know how far to go to create the perfect blueprint. And they sometimes go too far where they've spent money that they're simply not going to get a return on. So what we tend to actually look at is the refurbishment blueprint. Now, how did this come about? Let me tell you, my first refurbishment was an absolute disaster. Now, we made money and we achieved what we needed to achieve, but it took too long and it took too much of my time. It was literally a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job for me refurbishing one small terraced house in Newport. And that's not the way it should have been. I had no plan. I spent too much money. All I was doing all day was running around for supplies, materials. I would get back to the site and they say to me, "Oh, Ben, have you got the skirting boards?" "No, I forgot the skirting boards. Let me go back to Howden's, get the skirting boards, come back. "Have you got the door handles?" "No." Back to get the door handles, back to Screwfix. In Screwfix, I was on first name terms. They used to make me coffee in Screwfix because I was there several times a day. It was great in the forming of relationships, but in time management, it was absolutely terrible. So what would I do? What could I do? And how could I forward, expand, and scale this business? Well, it's quite simple. What I needed was a blueprint. Now, I created a blueprint and I had to do this. And being a non-analytical person, being a creative person, it was very difficult for me to do this. But I had to sit down. I had to think hard about all the mistakes that I made in the previous refurbishments that I'd done, all the exercises that I'd done that were not time effective. And I had to eradicate this. So I crafted what I call the perfect blueprint for refurbishment, and let's just call it at the moment, on the level that I spoke about earlier, a refurbishment for 2 and 3 bedroom terraced or semi-detached houses in the South Wales region. So I put this down on paper painstakingly, and I put this blueprint to the test. And in 2018, I actually completed 13 flips in 12 months. That was easier than the first flip that I did soulless. Now that puts it into context. How can you do 13 flips in 12 months and it be easier than doing one single flip that took me about 6 months? Well, it's all down to systemization and the blueprint. So how does the blueprint work? Well, it's really simple. It works for flats, it works for houses, it works for terrace, semi-detached, it works for bungalows, it works for any property. The blueprint I'm talking about today works for any property that, let's say, put on the market for sub 300, 250,000 pounds. That's the kind of price point that we're at. Why do I like properties like that? Well, it's quite simple and straightforward. When we're flipping properties here in South Wales, it's an entirely different marketplace to the rest of the United Kingdom. But when we're flipping properties in Southeast Wales region, we need to look at a specific price point. I choose to look at traditional build, freehold, 2 and 3 bedroom, terraced or semi-detached houses. And the reason is simple, because we're creating a product and we've got a perfect blueprint to sell these products out on a flip to first-time buyers or home movers, preferably first-time buyers. It makes it simple. You pick up a great deal, a property that needs a full refurbishment. You carry out that refurbishment to the blueprint standard. You then put the property on the market and you sell it to a first-time buyer. They have nothing to sell. They've got their mortgage agreements in place. They've got proof of their deposit funds. Everything is in place for a very, very quick sale and indeed a quick profit. So it's not at the top of the key of profit, but at the same time, if you look at the return on investment that we achieve on the money that we spend on these projects, it's absolutely key. It's fantastic. Likewise, we have a dual exit strategy for all of our properties. So every property that we buy must be suitable not only for flip, if that's our preferred strategy, but also for rental. And likewise, if rental, for example, the BRR principle, that's the buy, refurbish, refinance principle, is your chosen strategy, the property must also be good for flip too. It's pointless buying a house that's great for rental, but will never sell. And people say, well, it doesn't matter, Ben, because I'm going to keep it forever. I'm going to rent it out forever. I'm going to hand it on to my kids. And I say, what if something happens? What if a circumstance changes in your life? There's a tragedy, an unforeseen circumstance, somewhere where you need to turn this property back into money. What would happen then? If you can't sell it, or the only person that would buy it is an investor, you're looking at a long time to sell and also a very low price. If you buy a property that's got a joint exit strategy, so it's good for rental and it's good for flip, you know you can turn that property back into money very, very quickly too. And that is very, very important. We need to be looking at the dual exit strategy. No matter what your chosen strategy is, look at the dual exit strategy. And the blueprint is almost identical. There's 2 differences in our blueprint for flip and for BRR on properties, as I've stated within this segment. And the 2 differences are the carpet we use and the work surfaces that we use in the kitchen. So it makes it ideal, because if you're thinking of doing a mixed strategy where you're flipping properties for cash flow, but also you're building your portfolio via the buy, refurbish, refinance principle, then you can make the decision even as you're doing the refurbishment. You've only got to change the worktops and the carpets. It's that simple. We tend to operate in and around the Newport area, the southeast Wales area, and up through what I call the A467 Valley. So if you look at Newport, and if you're not familiar with the territory, look at the roads, the A467 and the valley towns that it goes up. They're fantastic for both strategies, BRR and flip. Why are they good for that? Well, it's quite simple, because we have excellent road networks. So when you look at these valley towns on the A467, you're very close to Newport, to Cardiff. You're very close to the M4 motorway. You've got great transport links. And most of the towns since 2003, when the Valley train line was reopened, have got a railway station that will take you to Newport or to Cardiff. So we're dealing with professional people that are commuting to Newport or Cardiff. Now take Newport, for example. Newport's fantastic because in the centre of Newport, we've got a mainline railway station that happens to be on the Swansea to Paddington Run. And that's amazing, because on that railway station, and there's so many services during the day and into the late at night too, on that railway station, you can be in Cardiff in 25 minutes. You can be in Bristol in 30 minutes. You can be in London from Newport in 1 hour and 45 minutes. So transport, key links are the strategy that we're actually looking at here. And again, when we go up the A467 Valley Road, we've got fantastic dual carriageways. We've got our railway station. So it's a great place for us to actually work. So how do we start our refurbishment? That's the key question that everyone wants to know. How do we start? Well, the first step which we've got is the appraisal. Now, with our refurbishment appraisal, what we need to be doing is we need to be establishing what needs to be done to this property. Now, every property is different. So it starts off with the discovery of needs. The discovery of needs are what we need to do to the property, and essentially, we need to check for major defects. That's the most important thing. Sometimes we will look at the ideal property, which is a 2 or 3 bedroom, semi-detached, Terraced house, for example, in the South Wales Valleys area, one of the towns I've mentioned on the A467 Valley Road in Newport, wherever the property happens to be, we found ourselves a freehold, traditional construction, terraced house that meets all of our requirements. So we go and see it, we book a viewing, and we've got 15 minutes to do an appraisal on this property. So the first thing that we need to do, really important, this could kill the deal. We need to check for defects. We need to check there's something with this property that's not too wrong that means that we can't go on with it. So what would major defects be? Well, major defects in a property are things like subsidence. They are things like dry rot, wet rot, rising damp. Now we need to have a look at A, whether the property is suffering from defects as such, and B, how much it would cost and how timely it would be for us to eradicate these certain defects. So first of all, we need to be looking at the property very carefully from the exterior and the interior, and we need to be checking for defects. For example, if we're seeing cracks on the exterior and the interior of the property, the cracks are more than a centimetre, more than you could push your finger into, that's a problem. That could signal that the property is suffering from subsidence. Subsidence is the movement, the sudden and unexpected movement of a property. Now, all properties will move. If you look at a cottage that was built 300 years ago, it will have moved. It was built on black ash. Nature happens, but it's moved very slowly in a very long period of time. So it's not necessarily a problem. Inside, the angles are a bit skew if the floor is not quite straight. As you go through doorways, you think, wow, a carpenter's going to have fun putting a new door on that. But it's not a problem. If, for example, there's been a sudden influx of movement, it means that there's either caused by natural or man-made effects. That can be a major problem because a property that's suffering with subsidence could have to be underpinned. Now, if you underpin the average property, you're not looking at any change from below £20,000. And it's going to take a long time for the engineers to get that right for you. So sometimes we'll look at a property that fits all of our criteria, but because it has a major defect, we've simply got to move on to the next property. Have a think about the properties that you've seen and whether you've spotted any major defects. When we're looking for the defects, we use all of our senses. We use our sight, we use our hearing, we use our smell. People say smell? I say yes. You walk into a property, you open the door, and the first thing you smell is that musky, damp smell. It means the property's probably damp. It means you could have timber rot. We bounce up and down on the timbers. We use our feeling. So when we're upstairs, is the floor bouncy? Is the stairs bouncy? Could that be that the wood, the timbers in the property is rotten? We look for subsidence. So we use our eyes, we use our ears, we use our senses when we're looking around the property. And don't forget, guys, we can't see anything that a surveyor can't see. Everyone can see the same thing. Everyone can feel the same feeling. Everybody has the same effect on this property. It's just knowing what to look for. And the major defects in properties are as listed. I've told you: subsidence, wet rot, dry rot, rising damp. There's quite a few more, but they are the major ones that you need to be aware of, as well as when you look outside in the garden. One of our best friends in horticulture in South Wales is Japanese knotweed. So many properties suffer with Japanese knotweed. Now, for those of you that don't know about Japanese knotweed, it is a plant that was imported from the Far East, obviously, many years ago. Now, it was imported from the Far East because they thought it was wonderful. These people in the Far East looked at this plant and thought, wow, look how thick the roots are. Look how thick and fast it grows. Amazing. There's no natural predators for it either. So it'll grow anywhere without being attacked. So literally, this stuff grows like wildfire. Now, what they first did was they brought it over to the United Kingdom because it made fantastic resources for animal feed. So they started using it. And then during the Industrial Revolution, when the railways became prevalent, they were looking at these Japanese knotweed plants thinking, wow, we need sound barriers for the side of railway lines. This will be amazing. So, of course, as they're building these railway networks, they're planting Japanese knotweed all the way down the side. So it's particularly prevalent in places where you are close to a railway line. Now, I've got resources on how to identify it. Luke will be sending out an email after this with several more bits of information. If you want any information on anything that I've gone through during this presentation, please signal it with Luke and I will send you a spreadsheet on that. Japanese knotweed has to be eradicated from the property to make it saleable and to make it mortgageable. But so many people going to view properties will identify it does have Japanese knotweed. If not, the estate agent or the auctioneer's told them that it has Japanese knotweed and they run for the hills. Now, when every other person, every other investor, every other developer is running for the hills and you're the only bidder, guess what? You're going to get the property for a really good price. And you know, with skill and with knowledge, how to eradicate this, how long it will take you and how much it will cost you. Just another thing on the defects to be aware of. Now, when we appraise our properties, we need to start in a methodical fashion, because bear in mind, when we're doing a viewing with an estate agent, we're going to have a 15-minute window. And what we need to do is we need to spend 10 minutes appraising the property, 5 minutes making our appraisal video of the property. So we've got to be pretty quick and pretty efficient at what we're doing. So first and foremost, we're going to look at the exterior and garden. So we'll be checking for that dreaded Japanese knotweed. We'll be looking at the exterior of the house. Now we'll start from the very beginning and we'll be looking at the roof, the ridgeline of the roof. Is the ridgeline straight? Is the roof in good condition? Are there any slipped, broken or missing tiles? Is the chimney stack in good condition? What's the pointing between the brickwork like on the chimney stack? Are there plants growing from the chimney stack? Is it leaning? Is the roof sagging? Is it bowing? All of these things would signal that you've got a problem or a failure with the roof that could be quite costly. If your roof line, your ridge line is perfect, your roof is perfect, there's no slipped, broken, missing tiles, there's no signs of sagging or bowing, the chimney, if there is one, is in good condition, that's fine. We then look down the front of the house, and houses like this pictured here are really easy to see because this is the original stone that the house was built with. So we're looking here to see what the stones are. There's no signs of major cracking here. There is going to be cracking within the pointing because it's very, very old. And don't forget, these properties that have render or pointing on them, they get subjected to a massive temperature differential. I mean, during the summer, we can get up to 28, 30 degrees. During the winter, we can go down to minus 10 degrees. Plus, in the meantime, sunlight's burning the property, plus lashings of rain on it. It's quite hard going for our properties here in beautiful South Wales, especially in the Valley region. So we've got to look at this. And if you look at this property here, everything is in perfect condition, but the lintel above the window here, can you see we've got a slight problem with a slipping tile just there, a slipping brick just there. But again, that can be easily rectified. You've just got to consult your professional services when looking at defects. But for all intents and purposes, this is the perfect look of the front of a property. There's no signs of movement. There's no signs of subsidence. The roof is all in good condition and the property appears to be in great condition. The garden, we need to have a look at the garden. If we cut the garden back, if we got rid of all the weeds, is there any Japanese knotweed? How would we do it? What would we do with it? Here, it looks like I'm trying to push the house over. I'm not. I'm passionate, as you probably know, about property and showing people how to spot defects with property and how to appraise them. What should we do to the front of this property? Should we get a new front door? Should we paint or spray the windows grey? Should we paint the reveals? Should we paint the windowsills? They're all things that you've got to take into account and you've got to note down for your refurbishment program. So we move on from the exterior of the property and we have a look at the interior of the property. We need to look at the walls. Now the walls, is there damp in the property? Rising damp never goes normally above about 1 meter. If there's signs of damp that look like this that are higher than 1 meter or they're upstairs, the chances are that will be water ingress, either caused by a faulty roof or blown render on the outside of the property, overflowing gutters. There's quite a few different reasons why that could be there. But here, when it's coming from the ground up and there's no sign of any of the water ingress, it's normally rising damp. So what do? We simply hack off the plaster. Below the plaster, there'll be render, and below the render, there will be the original brick or block, depending on how the house was actually built. These houses were built without damp-proof courses, don't forget. And a lot's changed. When these houses were built, they would have coal fires in there. Now, the way that a coal fire works, if anybody is into chemistry or physics, they'll know that it takes the air from the room in the burning process and pushes it up the chimney. In the old days, we would have rickety old wooden frame windows, and they were great because the wind used to whistle through them. So you've got a constant circulation of air in the property. The property is breathing. It's heated by the coal fires and it's breathing. Today we've got the same property with no damp proof course. We've put ultra efficient UPVC double glazing and doors into the property that are basically airtight. We've covered over the fireplaces so the property can't breathe. And especially if the property's been empty, if we're looking at a property that's, let's say, most of the properties that we do acquire are bereavement sales, if probate's taken a long time to go through, it means that property could have been empty for a long period of time. Have a think about the properties that you've been to view recently. What were the circumstances in which the seller was? If it's a bereavement sale, sometimes I've known it take 5 long years. That's 5 summers and 5 winters without the property being ventilated, heated, or lived in. And that can cause massive deterioration of the property. So we need to have a look at the walls, the ceilings, and the flooring. Now, it goes without saying we will be replacing, sadly, we won't be keeping this carpet, we will be replacing the floorings. Our standard blueprint indicates that we have a black fitted mat by the front door, and this is right as of October 2024. A black fitting mat by the front door. We then have grey carpets with a nice thick underlay. Think about the desirability of the property. We have a 10mm underlay under the nice quality grey carpet. It creates that lovely feel, and it also protects your carpet too. So when you've got carpet in very vulnerable areas, like on the staircase, for example, if you have no underlay, the carpet will wear out in a matter of months. If you have a very good quality underlay, it'll protect the carpet and it will last far longer. In the kitchens and the bathrooms, we use high quality vinyl. We've got a beautiful grey herringbone vinyl that we use, that people have to look really carefully at this herringbone vinyl just to see that it's not laminate, because it's that good. And that's all done on a really, really tight budget. Now, we need to look at, obviously, the walls, the flooring, and what we need to look at is what is on the walls. So the chances are we've probably got Artex on the wall, or we've got wallpaper. Now, standard wallpaper is pretty much okay, but if it's been up for a long time, it'll take the plaster off. If you've got what they call anaglypta, that's the patterned wallpaper, or the good old-fashioned wood chip wallpaper, the chances are the wood chip wallpaper is holding your house up. That's how strong this paper is. When the paper comes off, it's taking the plaster off. So we've got to see what's underneath. Is it render underneath, or is it the old-fashioned lath and plaster, which is the wooden slats and that awful black dust that gets everywhere? If anyone on here has ever stripped a house that's got lath and plaster, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's something that when you strip a house of lath and plaster, you cannot see a foot in front of you for the dust. And then for 2 weeks afterwards, you're constantly pulling it out of your ear. So it's that bad. That's lath and plaster. If you have lath and plaster, you'll probably need to be dot and dabbing the boards on there as well. But if it's got rendered, it's in good condition, even if the wallpaper takes the plaster off, which it doesn't always do, but you've got to assume the worst, and it will do, then you need to replaster the actual house. Then we need to take a look at, obviously, what's important and what can be costly is the windows and the external doors on the property. Like I said here, the windows on this particular property were in really good condition. So with a bit of TLC, you can clean up the UPVC and you can paint it. We actually painted these grey, and we did need a new front door. The door was actually damaged, so we did need a new front door, but that added massive curb appeal to the property. So go and check the windows, check that the panes are not broken, the seals aren't broken, so they have the moisture, and indeed check that the mechanisms work properly. If the property has wooden frames, single glazed windows, aluminium windows, etc., you've got to budget for all new windows for the property. You need to have UPVC double glazing in the property. The only caveat to that is if the property happens to be a listed building or is in a conservation area where they may dictate you need wooden frame windows. Now, I would strongly advise you against buying either of those scenarios because the refurb costs will be telephone numbers. To get wooden framed double glazed windows handmade is a damn sight more than our good old trusty UPVC double glazing. A good quality UPVC double glazing looks fantastic. You can get the right sort of color. We can be on trend with the gray. We can keep it white. The choice is yours when you're doing your refurbishment. So what else do we have to look for on our appraisal of the property? Well, electrical, heating, and general plumbing. Now, these are three things that are very, very important because they can be extremely costly. So first of all, we have to have a look at the electrics for the property, because anything from the consumer units onwards in that property is your responsibility as the homeowner. So first of all, we have to take a look at the consumer unit. Now, how old is that consumer unit? Is it one of the old Wilex fuse boards? Wilex used to have the monopoly on the United Kingdom. Every single Bakelite fuse board that you see in old properties that haven't been touched for a long time is always made by Wilex. Now, if you've got a Bakelite fuse box in that house, it's game over. You need a full rewire, because I'm telling you, if it's still got the old fuse wire, you imagine if something trips, instead of just flicking the switch back on, finding, eradicating the problems, flicking the switch back on, you've then got to go out to the hardware store and you've got to buy the appropriately rated fuse wire to wrap around that fuse board and push back in, hoping that it doesn't go again. So you've got to go and repeat the process over again. So if it's got an old Wilex fuse box in there, you know that the property needs a full rewire. But don't rest on your laurels. It could have a modern fuse box with switched units, a modern consumer unit, and the wires behind could be really old-fashioned. There could be no earth ring. So you have to take a view on this. Quite often we go upstairs, and I'll talk about this in more detail. We unscrew one of the pendants upstairs, one of the roses upstairs. We pull it down and we check, is it earthed? Sometimes you can look at it and you see the little Bakelite rose in there, and it's got an intertwined bell wire. It looks like doorbell wire that comes down, or speaker wire that comes down. We know then there's no earth in there. Again, the property has to have a full rewire. If it has a modern consumer unit and all the circuits are earthed, the chances are, and there's no guarantee, we've got to get this checked out, it will pass an EICR, which is an electrical inspection test. So therefore, we just need to have a look at what amendments we need to make. Do we want to have spotlights in the kitchen and bathroom? Do we want to have extra sockets? Do we want to rearrange the sockets in the kitchen when we refit the kitchen? All things like that are up for massive question. So we need to perform a thorough appraisal on the electrical, but also on the heating system as well. Now, the heating system is very important as well. Our standard here in the United Kingdom in houses is to have a condensing combination boiler heating system. So that's gas fired, okay? So we want a gas-fired condensing combination boiler system. So what this means is that we have a gas boiler located somewhere, and it can be anywhere in the house. It can be in the kitchen, a utility room. It can be in the hallway. It can be in a bedroom. It doesn't matter, as long as it's been correctly installed by a qualified engineer. And we have a boiler that looks something like this middle picture here. Now, this is a gas-fired combination boiler, and it's really important because it has the condenser pipe. Can you see this white pipe that follows through here? This white pipe here is a plastic pipe. All your other pipes are copper pipes that go in and out of the boiler. This is a condensing combination boiler. So what that means is that the boiler will heat the radiators, and it will also heat hot water instantaneously. So there's no need for a tank or a cylinder in the property. That's very old-fashioned. If you go to a property that doesn't have a boiler, you go to a property that has an electric heating system, you go to a property that has a gas heating system, but it has a tank or a cylinder in there, it's too old-fashioned. We simply don't want that. Why don't we want it? It's uneconomical. You imagine people these days, for example, occupants of a house, they might be using the gym 5 days a week. All those 5 days a week, your hot water cylinder is there bubbling away, constantly using energy to keep it to the required temperature. Then, for example, if we have a party at home, we have people staying over and a few people want to use the shower or bath, we run out of hot water. We've got to wait for the hot water to heat up again. Whereas when you've got a condensing combination boiler, if you are not calling the hot water on demand, it's not using energy. And if 10 people want to shower for an hour each, it'll give you as much hot water as you want in succession. So our standard is a gas-fired combination boiler. The only caveat again to this is certain areas of South Wales will not have a gas spur. They'll not have a gas main. Every town that I work in on my program does have mains gas. It's only rural areas that tend not to have gas where we've got to look for alternative solutions. Sometimes as well, which I don't advocate buying, for flip or refurb, is flats in high-rise blocks sometimes do not have gas. So therefore, the only heating solution for those is electric heating solutions. With the cost of electricity at the moment, an alternative that would be cost effective, if you like, as far as efficiency, is extremely expensive to install. So the blueprint for our heating system is a gas-fired condensing combination boiler system. We need to look at as well at small things for the heating system, such as our radiator. They've all got TRV. What's a TRV? It's a thermostatic radiator valve. A thermostatic radiator valve means you can control the temperature of that particular rad. So you can have certain rooms hotter than others. In a house, typically, you've got one thermostat for the radiator. So it means that if you've got the required temperature downstairs, upstairs might be really hot. So we need to make sure our radiators are in good condition. If they're not, we need to budget for the replacement of radiators, and we need to make sure they've got the thermostatic radiator valves on them. Now, when we move on from electrical, heating, and general plumbing in the property, we need to look at the woodwork. We need to look at the carpentry in the property. So we need to be looking at the architraves, the door frames, the doors, the skirting boards. We need to make sure that they are in suitable condition for either a flip or a BRR project. Now, sometimes you see them and they're battered, they're bashed, they've got holes all over them and indents all over them from where they've had different hinges and different latches put on them. They've had more paint than a battleship and they're simply not fit for purpose. So we have to budget to replace them. But your eye will see that easily. How does that look? If we sanded that down and we repainted it, would it look great? If not, we need to budget to replace it. Likewise with doors. If you've got the original doors, let's spend a little bit more money, because I love period features. I love retaining history. Let's keep them. But what you'll find is quite a few of our period properties that we're looking at, the miners' cottages, 2 and 3 bedroom terraced and semi-detached houses, have had the doors replaced in the 60s and 70s and the 80s. Oh dear. We've got cardboard doors. We need to replace the doors. The doors need to look nice. We need to have nice doors, hung well, with brilliant polished chrome ironwork. It makes the house look how it should look for our blueprint. So after we look at carpentry and doors, we need to look at 2 of the very most important rooms in the house. These are the kitchen and the bathroom. Now, all of you are thinking, it's going to cost me money. Think about how much it cost you for your last kitchen and bathroom. When we look at our blueprint, we're not looking at our own house. We are looking at the standard blueprint for a BRR or a flip project. I have the standard layout, either a 9 or a 12-piece kitchen. We have trade deals with Howdens. We have trade deals with Magnet and other major suppliers. And likewise, the bathroom. The bathroom is really simple and straightforward. A lot of people say to me, well, we're going to put a double shower. I say it's a family home. It could be a family home. You need to have a bath, a shower over, shower screen, contemporary wash and basin and toilet. That's all you need. You need to tile behind the bath and around the edges and have a splashback. That is how we keep the bathroom looking crisp, pristine, beautiful, but also importantly on budget. Kitchens and bathrooms are important, but we need to keep them on budget. Further information will be available on both the kitchen and bathroom for you as well. Once we've done that, we need to have a look at obviously lighting and furnishing. Now, we don't do anything with the furnishing of the property. We've got the kitchen, we've got the bathroom, we've got the floorings. Do we put blinds up? No, because if we put blinds up, they'll want curtains. If we put curtains up, they'll want shutters. So we don't do anything. Now, what we do, in every room, we have the cheap plastic pendants, apart from the kitchen and bathroom. We need to showcase our kitchen and bathroom exceptionally well. So in the kitchen and bathroom, we have the pin spots in the ceiling. Your electrician will be able to tell you how many you need in each room, dependent on size. So it doesn't look like the Blackpool illuminations when you turn them on, but also it's lit well enough. Because picture this, you've got a first-time buyer turning up to buy your beautiful flip project. They walk into the kitchen, the spotlights are bouncing off that beautiful new kitchen. They walk into the bathroom, beautiful bathroom with either black or chrome accessories on. The pin spots are bouncing off that as well. It just creates the wow factor. So pendant lights, and I hear you all saying now, Ben, you sound cheap when you're saying pendant lights. I am cheap. They're £2.50 each. Why do we use pendant lights? Well, let me tell you about one of the first flips that I did. It was a beautiful little property by the riverside in Newport. And I really wanted to finish this off properly. So I thought, I'm going to stop and I'm going to get some proper light. So I went to a shop in Newport. For those of you local, they'll know it. It's called Arnold's. Arnold's lighting store, which is sadly closing at Christmas because Nigel, the owner, is retiring. He's been one of several owners of Arnold's. It's been, I think it's about 125 years old, this lighting shop. But literally, it's one of those shops where you can go in and you can ask for anything. He'll disappear upstairs, come back down 2 minutes later, and he'll have it for you. I said, Nigel, I want a few nice quality, contemporary, neutral lights. He came down with a few ideas for me, and they were spot on. I got them all half price. But I still spent £500. Went back to the house. The electrician had put the white pendants up in all the different rooms. I said, right, scrub those. We're doing, oh, okay, fine, Ben. We put the lights up mainly downstairs, and they looked $1 million. They really finished the house off nicely. I was so proud of it. I sold the house on, I think it was the first or second day of viewings. Got full asking price for it, or over asking price. I forget, the market was crazy back then. And was delighted with the result that I had achieved. Now, what do you learn? You only learn from experience. So come 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks later, I forget what the timescale was now because it was many years ago, I had a call from the estate agent to say, Ben, your property, the owner's just taken possession of, the heating system doesn't work. I said, well, that's strange. It's a brand new heating system. Let me investigate. I said, right, the easiest thing is I'm in Newport myself. Let me pop over. I kind of had an inkling as to what it would be. And that's that when, for example, somebody moves into a property, they quite often change the electricity supplier, who will then change the meter. If you change a gas meter, it obviously causes an airlock within the system. You have to reset the boiler. But rather than try and explain that over the phone, I thought it was easier because I was only a few minutes away from the property in central Newport. But I popped there myself and sorted out for them. So I walked straight in, sorted the boiler. Wow, all working perfectly. The lady was over the moon. As I'm walking out, I kind of look up and I'm like, there's something missing. Where have my lights gone? I turned to her, I said, the lights. She went, oh yeah, I didn't like them. I took them to the charity shop. Lesson learned, lights are very, very personal. These are all lessons that I've learned in creating the perfect blueprint for the flip in this particular segment. So lighting is very perfect. Hence the reason why I can quite confidently say to you, spots in the kitchen and bathroom, but in the main rooms, the £2.50 pendant lights. Let them put a shade on it. Let them change that to their own style, their own desire. It's too personal. We learn all these things as we go along, which is quite funny. So step 2 is going to be our contractors and our trades. And this frightens a lot of people because so many people don't hear about how many wonderful building contractors there are out there. They only hear about the horror stories, which is really sad. And let me tell you, in my experience, I've been in this game for a long, long time, the rogues and the cowboys and the poor quality contractors are in the very small minority. Most tradespeople are proud of what they do. They've got great businesses and they will give you an excellent quality finish. So don't be afraid. But also, like I say, although in the small minority, they do exist. Your cowboys do exist. So what do? We've got to look at the contractors and trade. So first of all, we've got the main contractor. Now, the main contractor will be the person that takes the job on for you. And they will probably themselves do the strip out. They'll do the plastering. They'll do the basic plumbing and the carpentry. All the other trades are probably left to individual tradespeople. For example, the electrics have to be done by a qualified electrician. The heating has to be done by a gas-safe heating engineer. So you'll probably find that they will integrate and they'll incorporate these other trades for you. So when we choose our main contractor, we've got to make sure that they have access to a heating engineer, an electrician, and individual trades. So what's the selection process for looking at our main contractor? Well, you can either come to me because we've got trusted and trade people in this area that we work with and have worked with on a historical basis who have returned us fantastic quality for fair market prices. Now, that's really important. Don't beat your tradespeople up over price. Get them to perform a quality job at a reasonable price. If you beat them up over price and they are, let's just say they've had a cancellation or they're a bit short on work, They may do it for a real knockdown price for you, but they're not going to be happy. And they're not going to return the sort of quality that you deserve. So you've got to give them what I would call fair market value for a good quality return and also a longevity of relationship. That's important. It's so much better to pay a little bit more and have them on tap than be constantly searching for new tradespeople all the time. And that is something that will literally fill your time completely. If you want to find your own tradespeople, how would you do it? Well, let me give you a few little insights here. First and foremost, I would look on the major websites such as in South Wales Property Investment. Don't go on commercial sites where they charge the builders, the tradespeople, for leads, because that means that you're probably going to get builders that are more expensive or builders that are desperate for work. Go on to a free resource like South Wales Property Investment on Facebook and put on there, I have a full refurbishment for a 3-bedroom terraced house in postcode area XYZ. See what comes back. Now you will get referrals. First thing to do is ask the person, have you used this tradesperson? No, they're a friend of mine. Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that. Have you used this tradesperson? Yes, we have. What did the tradesperson do for you? The tradesperson did a full refurbishment on a 3-bedroom terraced house in XYZ town. Okay, that's great. Any pictures? Any videos? Could I come and see the property? They may let you come and see it. If they're happy with that tradesperson, they're happy enough to refer them, they'll probably let you come and see. So you can see that tradesperson's work in the flesh. When you get to meet that tradesperson, the initial conversation is essential. How do you and they get on together? That is absolutely key. If there's any doubt in your mind, or you're feeling that the conversation, potential relationship is a bit strained, and you're having the initial conversation, how is it going to be if there's a problem? How are you going to deal with that? So you need to make sure that you're perfectly comfortable and you gel. And we all know that we gel with most people, but there are people that we don't. So if that is the case, you've got to walk away from it. When you gel with that person and they're saying the right things to you, you're appreciating what's going on, you need to then ask them, can I see an example of your work? Now, any tradesperson can show you an example of their work. If, for example, they've upset their clients, they've not delivered, or they are poor quality, their clients will either not let you show their work, or they'll tell you exactly what they think about that tradesperson. So therefore, that tradesperson will avoid at all costs showing you previous projects that they've done. So if they can't show you anything, it's a red flag, walk away. If they can show you an example of their work, which don't feel afraid to ask, because let me tell you, if somebody came and painted your house and you were over the moon, would you allow them to show one person that work? I'm sure you would. If you were really annoyed with them, you wouldn't want them back over the front doorstep. And indeed, if they brought somebody around, you'd certainly tell them what the experience for you was like. So use that as a guide. They've got to be able to show you a project they've recently done that's specific to what you want done from them. Okay. Once they've done that, we need to get into the pricing phase of it, the budgeting, and we also need to present them with a schedule of works. Now, the schedule of works is absolutely essential because this details everything that they're responsible for. Think about how many individual jobs there are on just the refurbishment of a 3-bedroom terraced house. When you think about the scope of works and you do what everybody does, you meet the builder, you have a good relationship, you see their work, everything's fine. Everything I mentioned so far has gone swimmingly well. You have a walkthrough of your property with them. They're nodding, saying, yes, and I want that wall painted, yes. I want that meter boxed in, yes. And I want this radiator replaced, yes. Great. You've agreed to work with them. But that's verbally. Verbal contracts are not worth the paper they're written on, as somebody once told me. What happens 6 weeks down the line when you're walking around the property and saying, well, there's no box over that meter? Well, that wasn't in the quote. And that old radiator is still there. Well, that wasn't in the quote. And you said you were going to paint that. No, that wasn't in. How can you backtrack on that? It was 6 weeks ago you had the conversation. Who remembers? Who knows? Who was right? Who was wrong? If you have a schedule of works, everything is covered. So you get the schedule of works, you agree the schedule of works with the builder electronically via email, which is their acceptance of the contract with you and the pricing. and the time scale. And then if there is a problem 6 weeks down the line and they say to you, nope, boxing in that meter wasn't included. Well, actually, if you look at section 5.1.3, it does clearly state on there that you are to box the electricity meter in. There's no argument. So a schedule of works is absolutely essential. So that is how we get and onboard our building contractors. And likewise, if you want to use your own trades, you can. But let me give you a tip. When you choose your main contractor, let them use their own sub-trades, such as electricians, heating engineers, painter decorators. It makes the process a lot easier and a lot smoother for you. If you insist upon them using a family friend who's a painter decorator, who they're not familiar with, they can use that as leverage against you. They can say, well, the job's held up because the painter didn't turn up, or the painter's work is substandard, or the wall doesn't look great because the painter didn't paint it properly. Now, that could all be true, but also it could be the fault of the plasterer. It could be the fault of the electrician who delayed, that wouldn't let the painter start. Once they've got their own team in, then they work together, they gel together. They're probably not working for each other, they're subcontractors, but at the same time, they've worked on previous projects, they gel together, and that's the important thing. So that nobody can blame one another. So they can't ring you and say, oh, Ben, this electrician that I supplied myself, who you've never met, hasn't done a... They can't say that. They can't have that leverage against you. Likewise, if a building contractor says to you, well, you're going to need an electrician and you're going to need a plasterer and you're going to need a painter. Well, can't you supply those? No. Major red flag. Don't go for it. Every building contractor that's worth their salt will have an abundance of subcontracting trades on hand for them, and preferred ones they want to use because they know they can get the job done quickly to a quality standard and profitably, which is what their aim is as a business. So let them do that. As we go on now, we've got to look at project management. Now, project management is very important. Time management when we're performing our refurbs is absolutely essential. Okay, so we need to perform regular checks and we need to be on top of the time management. We will have agreed verbally and also in email with the schedule of works, the timing for the project. So we need to say by week number 2, this will have happened. By week number 4, this will have happened. 8, 10, etc. Normally, a refurb for a 2 and 3 bedroom terraced house, provided there's no extras needed and it's a straightforward refurb with no structural problems, etc., will be 8 to 12 weeks, depending on what the builder tells. Let them tell you from the outset. How long will this take you? It'll take me 12 weeks maximum. So 12 weeks from today is X date. Yes. You'll have it finished by then. Yes. Okay, that's fine. That goes into the email. We can then use that when talking to them. Well, actually, we're 4 weeks away from our deadline, and I think we're a little bit behind. What can we do to make the time up? So you see where I'm coming from then? We need to do a quality assessment, and please do not be afraid. As British people, we're sometimes very diplomatic. When we see something that we don't like, we go to a restaurant, we have a bad meal. The waitress comes round and says, is everything okay? You say, yeah, it's fine. Thinking I'll never come here again. Do speak out, but speak out in a respectful fashion. Just say, I don't think this wall is smooth enough. I don't think the door handle is in the correct place. I don't think this is the correct paint. I think this needs another coat of paint. Do not be afraid. You are paying for these services and you have the right to the quality which you have paid for. So do not think twice about questioning, but question, like I say, in a professional and a very, very compassionate manner. When we get to the end of the property, the end of the project, we need to look at completion and snagging. Now, I'll tell you, there'll always be things that perhaps they don't spot because they're working on the property every single day that you will spot. So we need to talk about the snagging of the property. So we always retain a bit of the payment from the end of the project to make sure that the snagging is always finished. So we can say to them, right, have you absolutely, totally finished this project? Yes, we have. You go around the following day and you say, well, there's a couple of small things. I'm really pleased with the quality. I love the finish. The property looks beautiful, but this, and this listed down needs to be done. Once they're done, you then pay the final payment. Payments are essential when dealing with contractors because we need to make sure that we are helping them in their cash flow situation, but also we're not funding the work. Now, what I mean by that is that a lot of builders will ask for 50%, sometimes 100% up front, which is absolutely, totally unacceptable. We will pay for materials and a week's labor up front. So we'll pay typically 10% of the total project cost up front. We will then pay once a week on a Friday, because that normally ties in with when they pay their subcontractors on a weekly basis. We'll pay once a week on a Friday once we see the progress. So they know they're getting paid once the progress has moved forwards. They're happy you're making regular payments, and you're happy that you've seen the progress and you've got the value for money. If you pay half up front or everything up front and nothing happens for a month, what can you do? There's no incentive there. This is the fairest way, and any building contractor who's worth their salt, honest and genuine, will be happy to do it on that basis, as long as you stick to your word and you pay them on the Friday, depending on the stage that they particularly are at that point in time. So always 10% up front, followed by weekly stage payments over the 8, 10, 12 weeks, depending how long the project lasts for. Now, what we need to look at is the schedule of works. And it just so happens that, forbearing with me on this webinar, I'm going to give you my free gift. Okay, that free gift is a copy of the schedule of work. So when Luke sends through the email afterwards, if you would like a copy of my template schedule of works for your refurbishment projects, respond back to Luke, ask him for this, and we'll make sure that it's sent to you. Have you enjoyed everything so far? Yep, I can see a few heads. That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, what I want to show you as well is the copy of the schedule of works is also available on the Skool platform. So when Luke sends through the email, you will have a link to join our Skool platform, spelled SKOOL. It's an American platform built around training, mentorship, and coaching. Now, we are on the Skool platform, and for you to join, it's entirely free of charge. There's no obligation. It's entirely free for you to join. So have a look for that link and join our Skool platform. There's loads on there. There's a community of people in a similar situation to you, people who are new to property, people who are in property expanding their businesses, people who are looking to get into property. There's tradespeople on there. There's professional services on there. There's resources. There's free training on there. There's everything you need in your property journey is on the Skool platform. So if you don't do anything else after this webinar, please join our Skool platform, because it will be massively beneficial for you and it's entirely free. Now, during this webinar, I know I talk quite a lot, guys, but I can't fit everything that I need to tell you about refurbishments. But I can tell you about how I can further support your property journey for you. As most of you will know, I work in the training, the mentoring, and the coaching arena. I've built up a successful property business myself. I've helped many, many people in their property journeys. I've been with them along the way. I've thrived by watching people thrive themselves. So what I want to say to you now is, have a look at this actually. I've helped more than 50 students start their own property. 50, 50, line 50 people up. The testimonials speak for themselves. I really enjoy what I do. And I'll tell you now, I've synthesized my 25 years in property into 13 core modules that I teach all of my students. There's 13 modules, and that will teach you how to ride a bike, drive a car, drive a truck and a bus, and also sail a ship. Now, you may say to me, well, I just want to drive a car, or I just want to ride a bike. That's fine. But how about if I equip you for absolutely everything that you may need? Because you may want to ride a bike today, but in 12 months' time, you may fancy sailing a ship or driving a bus. You'll have the knowledge, you'll have the confidence, the competence, because it'll there be within inside of you from the training which you received from our platform. So how do our 13 modules work? Well, our 13 modules start with strategic goal setting and financial planning. We look at property types, location analysis. We look at sourcing, negotiating, and conveyancing. We look at financing. Now, finance is the lifeblood of the property industry. It doesn't matter how much money you've got or how much money you haven't got, you need finance. And if you know how to leverage and use finance correctly, it is your best friend in property. We also look at maximizing income through creative strategies. We look at on-site evaluations, actually physical on-site evaluations. We look at contractor management. We look at pricing and budgeting refurbishment. We look at maximizing income with new strategies, different strategies, strategies you never have heard of, strategies that work well in good times, but also we've got a whole toolkit of strategies that work well in bad times. How many property investors do you know that thrive in a recession? Well, let me tell you, we will give you the tools to do so that you'll make money, whether it's sunny, whether it's raining, whether it's hailing, whether it's snowing, whether you're in a typhoon or a hurricane, you can make money. We'll teach you about selling, refinancing and letting, attracting private finance. Now, attracting private finance is something that is massive. Attracting private finance. Do you know that you have people within your network who you could call upon who would support your property journey? Now, don't shake your head at me. Have a quick think about people in your network. Now, I'm talking about people who you are friends with, your family, your business, your work colleagues, people you meet at the school gate, people you meet at clubs, people you meet in the gym, people you meet in the pub, the restaurant, whatever your activities are. Have a think about all those people. Now, you're going to nod your head or shake your head at me and tell me they wouldn't invest in you. Have a think about them. You've got people in your network who will invest in you. You've just got to unlock that and unlock that potential. We look at refinancing for long-term property strategies. That's holding your property. That's holding your property and watching it double in value every 10 years. Creating a passive income, creating a pension income for the future, creating something to hand on to your children, something, succession planning. That's really important. And we end with a summary to complete the pathway to your own property business. Now, what could be better than those 13 modules with you in your life right now? What are the options? How can you fast track to property success? Well, let me tell you about property success. We have 3 different options for you here. If you like what you've heard tonight and you want to expand on it, join our Skool platform. It's free. I've told you about it. Join it. You've got free courses, you've got networking, you've got community support, you've got access to me. You can talk to me on there. You've got so much information on there. You've got bonus resources. You've got interaction with people in the same place as you. You've got interaction with tradespeople, professional services. The list is endless on Skool. You want a little bit more. You want to put these 13 modules into practice, eh? Yeah? Okay. Let's have a look at the Property Accelerator. Now, this is the 13 property modules that I've just gone through with you. So it's a self-paced video course. You can go as fast or as slow. It's like binging on Netflix. You can do it in a weekend if you want, or you can spread it out amongst your daily commitments, your family, your business, your work commitments. You've got all my property resources, all the documentation, all the paperwork, access to my network, access to my trade supplies, access to my tradespeople. They're all on the Property Accelerator program. But do you like companionship? If so, you can go on the one-to-one mentorship. Now, the one-to-one mentorship is basically the way forward. It's what most people choose to do. So you can complete your first project with me. You've got unlimited access to me. You've got in-person and Zoom training. Now, we go through all the 13 modules one-to-one. You come on site with me. You basically do everything within the modules on a one-to-one basis until you are completely happy with everything. We then scale your business together and you go off and you do what you need to do. But I'll still be with you forever because I want to know how you do it. I want to know how you're getting on. Like I said earlier, I've got one of my mentees who's been with me a few years now, and he is on project number 5. But I still want to see him.